Okay.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm speaking with Dr. Mervat Nasser. So welcome, Mervat.
Hello,
Mervat,
John.
we're going to speak a little about how does one become uh, who one really is. How do we become everything that we can be? But I was hoping um, that maybe just to start, if we could just speak a little bit about your story and some of the turning points, because uh, I know you've spent, a lot of time in London. You became an MD, you became a psychiatrist. So you've got that kind of both experiences, haven't you? The experience of Egypt and a lot of time in London. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got there and how you went and then came back to Egypt to do what you're doing now?
Yes, I was actually extremely fortunate because but again, it was a determination on my part. It wasn't an act of, it wasn't an accident or an act of fate or anything. It was actually a calculated and reasoned decision to do what I did with my life. And funnily enough, all the major turning points in my life were actually pre-planned, and almost I carried them out as I envisioned or had them in my mind, even as a child. So it's funny how it turned out to be, but it's just there are many things in my life that was shaped by forces around me, but they were absorbed, they were taken up inside me, and I claim that I am the sum of all the parts that made me, or I'm trying to become the sum of all the things that shaped me and contributed to my being. Yes, I am. I was a good student in general,
Mm,
inquisitive, curious.
mm,
Even one of my professors in London once said, after I faced a big tragic life event in my life.
mm.
He was worried about me, and then he said, "No, no, no, I'm not worried about you. You are too curious to die." which,
That's funny.
yeah, which is in fact this again sums me up.
Mm,
As long as I feel that there is still more to know, there is still more to become. Uh, I'm here. So now I talk about potentialities. Of course, at that time, I never really knew about potentialities or what it means or anything like that. But I knew that there were some hidden things that you have to actually search deeply and find and explore and use in your journey in
yeah, for
life.
sure. But
So there is a
when you were a clinical psychiatrist, for example, and I think you were lecturing as well, weren't you, over there in London at
yes,
time?
yeah.
Were you digging into ancient Egypt at the same time, or was that an ongoing process, that hidden part? Were you an Egyptologist while
It,
you were doing all that?
well, it became so, but I was a kind of probably more than the average Egyptian in terms of knowing bits about ancient Egypt, but far from being knowledgeable or able to discuss anything about ancient Egypt, simply because unfortunately we are not properly educated about ancient Egypt, which I think is the reason behind our psychological alienation, and also behind our predicament, and our cultural predicament, that our complete separation, and I would say divorce from ancient Egypt. All what we were taught about were kind of Islamic Egypt. And then after that, it was modern Egypt in many aspects of it. I must say that I was lucky that in the first year of the secondary school, I was properly taught into the world history. So I was actually amazed and mesmerized by the Renaissance and by Michelangelo and the Sistine Chapel and things like that. So there were bits and pieces like that that actually helped me. I mean, it is sad.
Spark the
Yeah,
interest.
exactly, and inspired me enormously. I mean, Bismarck in Germany, the Italian Union, lots of things. I mean, even the United States, the American and George Washington, and I mean, I think he had to say that if I fail today, I will win the next day or something like that. So there were really lots of things that made amazing impact. I can't believe even at that time that I was receptive and perceptive to this stimuli, which that actually came into my life rather haphazardly. So they were not something that I was educated to know about. And now it was actually in the course of general education. Lots of other things. I mean, something like I grew up by the Nile. I used to go to school in a boat in the Nile, in Felucca. So for me, the Nile was, I actually regard the Nile as my grandfather. So yeah, and I got into this idea of animating inanimate objects. So something like the Nile was like a living human being, like and a living wisdom, a living force. So that was that. The other thing was actually I was also very close to the pottery quarter in Cairo, because old Cairo is not very far from where I live, where the island that I was born and grew up in, which is the Rhoda Island. And I loved pottery very much, and I could see that how the potter makes something out of earth. All these things were really very, but if I went on, we will never finish.
Yeah,
So,
but they were they were
ah,
they were emerging in you as you went along, and at the same time, like you're also, have the qualifications in philosophy and all that kind of stuff. But it seems to me when you're talking, what I get is it was emerging in you this ancient. I mean, you said something very. I liked it. I thought it was very beautiful. Is the hope of the future lies in the well of the past, and I just couldn't agree more that the so many, like in the Renaissance, they went back and who was it? Ficino translated the Hermetica or whatever, and
yeah.
they went back to the past and it became that beautiful blossoming. And it's kind of like that's what I'm getting when you're talking about your story. You've got those professional qualifications there or whatever, and there's this deep thing from the past emerging or something.
Yes, because in fact, I don't know whether you have read, or I'm sure you know about the philosophy of hope. This man, this philosopher, again, was very important to me, although his books are not easy at all to read. I mean, it's just yeah. But he said something about the well, that is the past as a well
Mm,
that never dries up. I mean, it's there for you, and he calls it the baggage of the past that carry lots of possibilities and lots of ideas. It is like a reservoir. It's like a reservoir of ideas. Because it's also, and there is another notion which is related to that, that the past is not something static that you retrieve or you preserve as it is. You interact with it. And this interaction creates something new. And this is called nachleben. So you give life to the past. And that is actually fascinating, because the way I am, when we reach the destination of Hermopolis, the way I am dealing with Hermopolis, it's not like, there was a center of learning or an important place that, of course, it is mythologically, it is the birthplace of harmony and all that. No, it is how these concepts benefit us now, how this is relevant, how
because
they
sometimes when people hear it, don't they, about the past, they think, oh, you just want to go and become all indigenous again, or go back to the past, which is never going to happen, or something like that. But it's the guts of it's the principles.
Exactly. It is the essence. It is the essence. It is the soul. You are getting into the soul. You are getting into this, as I said, reservoir that doesn't dictate anything on you. It depends on how you perceive it and how you interact with it, and how the ideas of the past culminate within you into a new thing. And this new thing belongs to you, because it is your own interaction with the past. But it gives you, it is really like a torch, a beacon. It only illuminates the past to you, but it doesn't tell you to follow. It doesn't tell you to imitate. It doesn't tell you that this is the only way. And that's why I always actually say, when people talk about ancient Egyptian religion, I actually dislike very much the term religion. And I believe that Egypt did not have a religion. Egypt had almost an existential crisis, that they witness that there is birth and there is death. And they witness the sun goes down by sunset and comes out by sunrise. These are the simple things that actually guided the ancient Egyptians. And all their ideas revolve around that. They have an ethical code called Maat, who is one of the ladies or the women who are the feminine consorts of Thoth, who became Hermes after that. And she is all about balance, proportion, integration, justice, and all that. And it is like an ethical code. And you strive towards it, but you try as much as you can to actually help the Maat to live, which is done incrementally. Any good thing, any beautiful thing added to life, you are adding to Maat, you are observing Maat. But there were no religious rituals as such. People talk about priesthood, of course, in everything, because once you have ideas, you have a structure, and Egypt is all about, of course, is the first government and or state in history, and it had all the things that come with that. So it is, once you have political structure, then you will have power games, and you will have force, and how people want to be better than others. But even at the time when we had Amun or Ra and all that, there were other deities that were supposed to be representing aspects of
Very
the
important, though,
God.
isn't it? It wasn't
Exactly.
monotheistic.
Exactly. Yeah, but it wasn't also polytheistic.
Right.
It was
Why was that?
pantheistic. Yeah, because it is the belief in all is one and one is all.
Right.
So the one has several manifestations, and there is a saying in the coffin text, and also in other places, that says, when the one became two. So when strife began, and when dialectic started. So, but there is one at the beginning, and all the time, the notion of time in Egyptian way of thinking is a circular time that will lead you to the beginning, which again, it reminds me of Nietzsche and the eternal return. So you have the return to the first beginning, the everlasting beginning, which is what you aim for when there was a perfection, when there was oneness. But then the one became two, and the two became four, and all that. So there was this, which in fact is like the division of the cell in the embryo and all that. So this is actually how, but in the end there was oneness. So there is a difference between polytheistic and pantheistic in a way. Yeah, exactly. Which is really someone like Bruno was he perceived this idea of the Egyptian, that actually, and of course you have Spinoza, for instance, and it's very much like that. This it is all is one and one is all. So and anything that you believe in is almost like a valid equivalent of what I'm thinking, because it is an aspect of the one.
Yeah.
Be it wisdom and thought, be it balance and proportion and justice. Yeah, it's
the way I would put it on the Australian street, if I could put it that way, is that you can have the difference, you can have the aspects, but they're seen as aspects of the one. So it's kind of like if I was to look at it through the Greek thing, it's kind of like you can have, like, I think James Hillman said the psyche is like a boarding house, it's got all these different characters. So it's like you can have the Thoth, or you can have the Hermes or the Apollo side, or the different personality types. There's room for the different gods and goddesses, but they're going back to that one source. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why there were temples throughout Egypt for different deities, but they complement each other. They complement each other. You have, as I said, you have Thoth as wisdom. You have Maat as balance, proportion, and justice. You have Hathor as beauty and fertility. She's very much like Aphrodite. You have Isis as magic, being clever, being the consort of Osiris, who is all about, again, agriculture, resurrection, rebirth, and the continuous rebirth. There wasn't any element in ancient Egypt that was excluded from the equation, because everything, even Set, was supposed to be the, very much like Shakespeare's Hamlet, who killed his brother Osiris, and Osiris then became the god of the underworld, but after impregnating Isis, and she gave birth to Horus. Horus is never the savior, because in ancient Egypt there were no heroes. The hero is yourself. Again, this is another difference between Egyptian mentality and Greek mentality. The heroism. I mean, you can find that within the mythology, in the Greek mythology, that the heroism as well is within you. One aspect of the hero. I mean, you can look at Achilles, for instance. Again, very much Achilles with the fight, because he actually, it ends up, what's his name, his rival, the name escapes me. But it's very much like Set and Horus, because although they are in the fight, because he was trying to take revenge over his father's murder. And of course, at its face value, he's entitled, he's justified in taking revenge. But for the first time in life, there is a kind of tragic existential question. Is killing the evil that it is supposed to be represented by Set is going to get to rid life of evil? Of course not, because after all, Set is Osiris' brother, so they are two sides of the same coin. Also, who is there to judge who is right and who is wrong? After all, Horus is almost blinded by his right or his lawful right to actually take revenge. But then are we going to convert life into bath of blood? Or as Gandhi said, we're going to make the whole world blind if we're going to say eye for an eye. So we're not going to, we are going to become all of us blind. But the answer is, and that's why Thoth in this myth, he comes to the salvation of Horus. When Horus loses his eye in the fight with Set, and gave him a new eye, which is an all-seeing eye, which is the insight. So that is actually that what you need to judge any situation. You have to judge it from within you, from your insights, because what is there is a lot that is invisible to the eye. And there are several aspects that, of course, Horus or anyone who thinks is entitled and justified in doing what he's doing is totally unaware of. So the idea that Thoth intervenes and gives him a new eye is actually the first connection in history between sight and insight. And being a psychiatrist, all our therapeutic maneuvers are insight-giving therapies. So this is what we try to do, is to help the distressed, the diseased, the person who is in trouble, to actually seek insight from within, to actually evaluate his problems and find answers to it. And it's also, the other thing is all about emphasizing and highlighting the importance of the two, that there is always a dialectic. So we carry on with the dialectic of bad and good and evil and and good again, and that brings me again to Nietzsche, beyond good and evil. I mean, it is you have to go beyond that, and this is beyond the duality. So Horus and Set both are representing life duality. And without integrating both and balancing both and harmonizing both. And that's why in the end, there is a reconciliation.
And what is the reconciliation?
A reconciliation between Set and Horus. And that's exactly is the Caduceus, is the integration of the two elements in life. And again, talking about psychiatry and existential therapies, you have something like dialectical therapists, you have dialogical therapists, you have all of that. So all of these things are actually stem from the fact that you have two forces or you have a conflict. You can call it a conflict or you can call it a dialectic, and then the dialectic, you go beyond the dialectic and you create a third.
You get the new I.
Exactly. And then even that will continue to evolve and create an opposing discourse. And out of this various discourses, life goes on. But
so what do you think about politics? You know, what in the present environment and therapy politics?
I refrain from politics and religion. like a true English person. I'm not English, but there is, of course, an element of Englishness in me, having lived there for 30 years. But I actually go beyond that as well. I mean, I don't believe in revolution, for instance. I've never really got excited about this so-called Arab Spring, which of course turned out to be a fiasco anyway. But the reality of the situation that you need to evolve. You have to actually introduce goodness into the existing discourse. You have to create a parallel discourse. If you don't like the prevailing discourse, create another one. Don't spend your life fighting it. It will not go away. But by introducing another one, you will get some followers of the old one. And then there will be kind of balancing or buffering situation, buffering this kind of polarization. So life will not be as polarized as it was. It's probably not the most ideal or the best scenario, but still, it is better than nothing. So for me, it is not to fight the existing structure, to create, to work within it, to help it to evolve, or create a new discourse, which is, again, parallel discourse is working within the structure. Because in the end of the day, who says that the ones who are coming with new ideas, revolutionary ideas?
Who says it's correct?
Exactly.
And doesn't history say to us that maybe in South America or wherever, when the revolution happens and then that begins to deteriorate after a couple of years, that revolution and the same things start happening?
And in fact, it leads to dictatorship in the end. I mean, look at all revolutions that happened, including the most recent one. Forget about the Arab Spring, but the Iranian one, it led to what? Okay. Dictator. So normally, I mean, even the French Revolution, that is supposed to be the epitome of all great revolutions that actually preached equality, fraternity, and
liberty.
Exactly, all these beautiful things that all revolutions are modeled on. It ended up with Napoleon. So in fact, the same with the Bolshevik or the Russian Revolution. And look what happened to it. Although you can find a kernel of goodness in all these things. Be it the French Revolution or the Russian Revolution, all have got something in it. that can be utilized, that need to be studied, needs to be explored, and needs to be actually taken into consideration when you are starting in a discourse, not a revolution, starting to help humanity in a way to find a new paradigm, to change its mindset. So there are actually...
You know what I sometimes find, Mervat? It's like, I don't know, you have these two powers, you know, you have the left and the right or whatever. But maybe there's a lot of people now that would rather align to divine power, you know, to in the sense of what is it, what's the divine thing I should be following through all of this? What's the thread? What's the mysterious line I should be taking through life at any time? It's not kind of like the political power that I want to follow anyway. It's not, I mean, I can adapt to a certain degree and have a persona and, you know, but it's the hidden message of Hermes I want to hear or get from my dream, or it's the divine providence of someone that says something to me, something unusual down the street or something like that. It's the unexpected messages that come from life or something along those lines.
Absolutely, which actually, again, without realizing it, it provokes you, and it provokes you into thinking. And this is what is needed, is to tease the human mind, is to insult the mind, to actually get, we cannot carry on dealing with the mind as brain and cognitive functions only. We need to put the soul into the mind. And this ensoulment of the mind is what I'm interested in, which, of course, a lot of people say, oh, spirituality, or missing about spirituality, or becoming, either we are between two forces, either fundamentalism, extremism. There is, of course, we live in a culture of extremism, being football, hooliganism, or anything, you know, not only religion, and look at what is going on in Gaza, or it is all about, again, who has monopoly over the truth, and over the rights, and everyone seems to would think that he is the entitled one. But it is actually something that you get into saying that the ensoulment puts a kind of a new mind into your mind, and this is what actually the Egyptians had for the structure of the soul in ancient Egypt, or the psyche. And I'm also fascinated by the psyche in Greek mythology, but in ancient Egypt, there was the ka, which is really very much like the ego. And it is, in fact, I think, because of course we all know how Freud was fascinated by ancient Egypt, although he attributed everything to the Greeks. But he was fascinated by ancient Egypt. He was clever.
Apart from being brilliant and all that, he was a clever packager, if you want to put it in marketing terms. In his own way,
he's incredibly clever, and I find him a good writer as well, and a good observer, and a good person as an example of continuous becoming. Because who believes that psychotherapy was invented by Freud when he was at the age of 50? So yeah, that is usually the time when people think, well, I passed my prime and that's it and everything is, and then he created a new discipline, and but of course he acknowledged his debt to the past. Because he even called psychoanalysis as the major metaphor, the grand metaphor, and called it psychoarchaeology. I mean, it is like, you know, in order to get into the psyche, you have to take the debris out. It's very much like digging out a hidden city. And with all its rubbish and with all its contents, be it good or bad and all that. So, and then you may find a treasure in the end. So this is the beauty of it. And but the Egyptians, apart from, and he was the one who actually put the ego and the id, and he says where the ego is, there is the id. So the id and the ego are actually subsumed under the ka in ancient Egypt, which is really is me with all my needs, my, you know, instincts, everything. So be it good or bad, all the things. So it is the persona in a way, yeah. But the ba is like a bird.
Yeah.
And that still till now we talk about someone who's autonomous, able to climb to higher levels. Even we're talking about spiritual, not in terms of material hierarchy. That he is a free spirit. Free spirit. This is the ba, the free spirit, and you can always be the ba of your.
Can we say the bar is the soul and the spirit, or
You can
can we
say that,
distinguish?
yeah, you can say that, but also you can say that it is the all-embracing one,
Right.
and the all-embracing one. And funnily enough, which is, of course, when you know, when I'm saying about I'm very interested in the Hermetic or the ancient Egyptian roots of existential therapists. We have something like, you know, when Hermes and Psyche, apart from the myth that is all well known about Hermes and Eros, Hermes and Psyche is all about how the soul has to go through trials in order to deserve a godly position or to become one with the gods. So that is that is the idea of actually how to survive the trials of the soul, which is
But that's a very Egyptian
story.
idea in terms of Isis and Osiris. I was listening to where you were talking somewhere, and I was thinking, you know, I think you were talking about the need to accept loss and fragmentation and these aspects of life, because it seems to me that story of, you know, Isis and Osiris brings that to the fore. And that's wrapped up with what you're saying about the psyche in terms of that it's part and parcel of the whole gig, if we want to use that word. You know, like it's part of our becoming or something. Then it's not being like a naive idealist or something, that the world should be this way and I shouldn't have any trials, or it's not.
No. In fact, it is. You probably, I don't know, you are with me on Facebook. You probably visited my profile and saw my picture, which is it shows Newt and giving birth to the sun every morning, which is again, it captures again everything about ancient Egypt. But I put on the picture something says, endure my soul and help in the creation of your eternal heir. So in order to achieve eternity, you are going to go through turmoil and discord and conflicts and war within yourself to become the true self, to become this kind of elevated self. It is an alchemical process. It is that requires a lot of hard work.
We don't escape the
And
Nigredo. You can't just sail around the Nigredo or something like that.
No, yeah, or you have a shortcut. There isn't a shortcut. You have to go through that. You have to go through the whole process. And within this process, you find in your suffering your own purpose, because you are helping your soul to achieve eternity, or to achieve, and eternity is not like survival in the material world, or survival in a concrete way. No, it is actually a very abstract notion that you will be remembered. You will be in the collective conscious. You are going to be in the collective memory. You are going to be in the cultural memory. You are going to be in history. So you are adding to history. So that's even if history is in most parts is misguided and of course written by only the winners and all these things, but still there are bits and pieces in it that is going to tell you much. Like when I said in the Renaissance, and you have someone like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci, and you don't look at of course the Medici family, we are all grateful to them, because without them we wouldn't have had Ficino and the Hermetica. But at the same time, it is actually the artist, the creative souls that are the architects of civilization, the architects of humanity as we aspire or like it to be. I mean, as we hope it to be. So that is actually the idea, because yes, there is you are in between either, as I said, extremism of thought, fundamentalism, whatever, or reductionism, which is science, and of course science is important, but then you're talking about things like statistical significance, things cooked up, studies, finding things and getting promoted and becoming Professor so-and-so and all these things. Yeah, I've been in academia for years. So, yeah. So in many ways, you become in the end disillusioned with all these things. So, but they are important. Every aspect of it is important, because you have to know it to create what is the antithesis.
Yeah.
You have to have the thesis. Yeah.
I remember James Hillman talking once about an artist who learns with the master and copies the master's painting, so to speak, and then after some time the personal, individual, peculiar style develops. But maybe someone studied under that artist for 10 years, to learn their style before their own style emerged, kind of thing.
Absolutely, and to find their own creativity and come up with something no one ever thought of.
Which is what the Freuds of the world have done.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is the beauty of it.
Even though the Egyptians did actually think of it, but they didn't think of it in the same, meaning he thought of it in the modern context, so we can say. So he drew from something, but he brought it.
Exactly. I mean, I mean, going back to the bar, I mean, funnily enough, in the underworld, when it goes to the underworld, when when we die, in order to achieve an everlastingness or eternity, the trials in ancient Egypt, it is playing the Senate, which is the very primordial form or early form of the chess. And I'm sure you probably saw Bergman's film, The Seventh Seal. So you are no, yeah, it is. It starts with the person who is almost near the end, and he is almost condemned to death. I mean, like we are condemned to life for existence, we are also condemned to death. That is playing a chess with death. So you will find the Senate in all the tombs with the Ba hovering over the deceased who is playing the Senate. And the Senate is very complicated. It's very much like a chess. If you win, you are deemed worthy of companionship with the gods in their heavenly sphere. So it's very much, it's also Greek. It's very much like that, which is really the psyche with Hermes and the trials and all that. In the end, Hermes kidnaps her and then takes her back to Eros and all that. So that's all are really aspects of the self, and you will find resonance in all of in all. That's why I love mythology, and ancient Egypt is mythological. It's people don't give it it's a credit. They don't look at, because they are few and far between. It's not really like or they are essential. There are some essential myths, not like the Greeks. They have thousands of myths. And Zeus married who, kidnapped what, Hera, took revenge on whom, all these things. But in the end of the day, there is wisdom in all of that, and it's very similar. It's not that, and that's what I'm saying. There is oneness and different expressions.
And so getting back to this question, how do we become who we really are? What else would you say about that? How do we become all of what we really are?
By, like, again, and I will quote Jung, by fighting to become one of the herd, which is not an easy fight.
Fighting to become one of the herd?
No, not to become. Not to become one.
Okay, I'm glad. I was just about to cross myself there for a second.
No, not to become one of the herd. Not to become one of the herd. And of course, the fight these days is actually fierce, because you are increasingly drawn to the herd.
There's
have
pressure.
Things like, exactly, there is a lot of pressure. I mean, something like, we are doing a podcast now. Everybody is doing podcasts. Yeah. There are several around. I have to say that in the end of the day, there will be, it will not be about numbers. It will be about quality and the message within the podcast. But people at the moment, they measure their success or their ideas that are given, if they give any ideas, by the numbers of likes and the shares and all these things. So this is the herd. And we are pressured to become one of the herd. And even if there is very significant and important news, it will be overlooked in the plethora of trivialities that are being disseminated through the social media and all that. Only the very discerning eye, the very perceptive, individual that is going to pick what is there, what is behind the lines. And this is what Jung was saying: resist to become one of the herd. And doesn't mean to become selfish. It means to become an individual.
Yeah.
And to build your
So
own.
there was no one, meaning this is a big statement, but Jung is a very unheard animal. He wasn't big on the herd at all, was he? I mean, okay, maybe Nietzsche's the same kind of mold, isn't he? Like they're of an ilk there.
Yes, I am actually surprised that I didn't think that they met, but they were around the same time, and both are German speaking. So it is interesting. And I actually believe that Nietzsche hasn't been read till now. I don't claim at all to being an expert, but I'm a lover of him. But it's still, I feel, unfortunately he was misread, and people reduce his thoughts into something, the will to power, and of course all the things that happened to his writing and were falsified by his sister, I think, before his death and all that. So there are lots of things that actually people have to go beyond the visible, beyond the kind of what is seen. There is something. You have to get out of the cave. Again, it is just that this is actually the problem, but we are very much squeezed into a cave at the moment. And what you're trying to do, and few people are trying to do with these things, is really trying to get individual ideas, hoping that they get through the massive
the dominant ideas.
Exactly, the dominant ideas, and the shapers. I mean, of course, to have something. I mean, now I think there is a decline of what is called the influencers, but it's still the numbers in podcasts and all that matter, because there is monetization and there is all these things, and people don't know, people like myself, and I'm sure you don't know how to work the and how to get numbers, and we don't care, but actually we should care, because you need to get this kind of alternative messages across. Otherwise, there will not be another discourse. So we are, all these things are helping to build this another discourse, the parallel one. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you.
So to become an individual, to resist becoming one of the herd, to find your own uniqueness. And going back to Nietzsche, it's all about cultivating the self. And that can take me to Hermopolis, because I like the idea of self-cultivation. And I can see that the revival of the spirit of ancient Hermopolis, by creating the new Hermopolis, is to create a new environment in the spirit of the ancient one. That believes in the creativity of the individual, in the oneness of human beings, that transcends race, creed, color, gender, and all that, and the notion of being as becoming. That there is usually an opportunity, not usually, always. There is always an opportunity. Every day brings with it a new sun. And the new sun in ancient Egypt, which comes with dawn, was carried by Khibri, who is the scarab, And the scarab in hieroglyphs means become. So,
and your philosophy, your psychology is very much a psychology of becoming, isn't it? Like it's really
exactly. And that's why I feel that, and psychology of hope. And that's why I subscribe to humanistic psychology, to existential psychology and psychotherapy, because it's all about your potential. It's all about digging deep, tapping into the inside of you, and find these hidden potentialities. And there is always potentialities. There is always bits and pieces inside you that have not been explored yet. And of course, with it, there are constant becomings. So you are today that person, tomorrow you are a different person. Because out of this discussion we are having, I learn a lot from you. I interact with you. It is the encounter that is going to help you to, there is a new thought here. There is a new idea here. There is a new twist. So that is
or
actually
a new way into something, a new connection between things, all of that.
Exactly. And this is what creative minds are into lateral thinking. They're not.
There's a broad-mindedness to that, isn't there? There's a
exactly. It's about integrating all the influences, all the stimuli, all the things that come your way. And every single day you meet a new person. You read a post on Facebook. You know about a new book. I mean, the other day when I read your post and I was fascinated by the book that you were talking about, and of course your review and your article about it. All these things, it was, and I want to get the book because there is so much that you learn every day, but you have to actually, it's almost like your soul is a canvas. And you have all the time to actually either
integrate,
tune or exactly
deepen.
to direct deeper and deeper. And there is a kind of discerning perception as well. That is which is behind the scenes.
That the ibis or the eagle or the seeing through.
Exactly, seeing through. There could be a word that is actually in a sentence that triggers a lot in you. And ferments things. I mean, it's not only triggers, it can ferment all the chaotic thoughts that are inside you. So it is. It's fascinating because it gives you reason to live.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember, being a young person, and at the time it was very much in vogue to go and watch the French existential movie, and I used to think, wow, you could be happy when you walked in there, but you'd be very sad when you walked out because you'd think like, so I'm into this idea of the philosophy of hope, the way you're approaching the hope and the becoming, because it's kind of like, I think that, I don't know, what do they call it? It's like the fruitful center, the renewal, the death and the rebirth going hand in hand, and the new arising and all of that.
Absolutely. Which is again the dialectic, the death and rebirth that happens every day, which is very much like the death of the sun by sunset and the rebirth of the sun at dawn, which is the becoming, which is Hebrew. So it is, yes, exactly. And that's why there is in my book, in my little book, which is The Path to New Hermopolis, the history, philosophy, and future of the city of Hermes, I have a section, I have a chapter on Hermeticism as a philosophy of hope.
Right.
So, which really drives a lot, because if you read properly, existential therapists, for instance, someone like Viktor Frankl, it is all about becoming. It is all about not allowing the existing discourse to defeat you. There is a new dawn, and the new dawn is within you. It's not something that is out there. You have to create your own dawn. Yeah. And you die every single day, and you are born, or every single night, and you are born every day in the morning. So there is a cycle of death and rebirth every single day. And you couldn't have anything better than the sun, because it is all about enlightenment as well, because the Egyptians were the first to connect light with enlightenment. So
that's beautiful. And I think maybe that's a good place to stop. But it's kind of like, I am going to put up the link to the new Hermopolis, and I'll put up a link to your book. And there's so many great things you've got to say about all this and this time and linking it back to the past. It's great.
Well, I thank you very much for considering me. Thank you very much for the lovely interview. I actually didn't feel that I was being interviewed. I felt that it was a beautiful discussion, a beautiful dialogue. Yeah, conversation. So that's so thank you very much for that, and I hope to welcome you one day in New Hermopolis.
At the new Hermopolis. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
See you later.